The unexpected war dance asterisk. No one told Leo Carter that dancing could get him married on an alien world. He arrived on the planet Kirith with one mission: represent Earth at the Peace Summit and don't mess it up. The galaxy had just ended a long war, and now the warrior clans of Kirith were finally ready to speak with humans face to face. Leo was young, clean-shaven, and slightly nervous in his formal suit, standing among creatures twice his size, all armed with curved blades and glowing armor. He wiped sweat from his brow and smiled at the tall alien woman walking toward him. Her name was Zara Velrin, commander of the Stormfang clan, famous for her battles and feared across multiple star systems. She wore dark armor trimmed in silver, and her glowing tattoos pulsed with energy as she moved. To Leo, she looked like a walking statue. She looked like a walking statue, elegant and terrifyingly calm. Then she did something unexpected. She raised her hand in a fluid motion and extended it to Leo. The translator in his ear buzzed. "Will you dance with me, human?" Leo blinked, confused, but everyone around him stared in silence. He didn't want to be rude. He was Earth's representative, after all, so he nodded, smiled, and stepped forward. The drums began to beat slowly. Like thunder in a faraway storm, Zara's movements were sharp and graceful, like a predator circling its prey. Leo tried his best to copy her, adding a bit of rhythm from his old-school dance class. He didn't know what the steps meant. He didn't realize that each turn, each hand movement, and each eye lock was part of an ancient ritual, the dance of bonding. When the drums stopped, Zara bowed her head and extended both hands toward him. Palms up, Leo chuckled, a little embarrassed, and mimicked her gesture. Then the crowd exploded, not in laughter, but in roaring approval. A loud voice echoed from the platform above. "The human has accepted the bonding dance," said the elder counselor, his voice amplified for all to hear. "By tradition and law, he has chosen Zara Velrin as his mate." Leo's heart dropped. "Wait, what?" he said, looking around, hoping it was a joke, but no one laughed. Zara stood tall, face unreadable, as a ceremonial blade was brought to her and handed over with both hands. Leo raised his own hands, panicking. No. I didn't mean this was just a friendly dance, right?" But the elder continued, 3 suns from now, the human must prove his worth in the trial of standing, or forfeit the bond and his life. Leo looked at Zara, hoping she'd explain everything away, but she only said, "You danced, you chose. Now we stand together." He was escorted out of the arena with honor guards walking beside him and Kyrathi warriors singing songs of union. Inside the guest chambers, Leo paced around like a prisoner in a hotel room. He tapped his translator and mumbled, "How can a dance mean marriage? Seriously, who makes up these rules?" Later that night, Zara entered the chamber. Leo froze as she walked in silently, her armor making a low hum. "You did not know the meaning of the dance?" she said flatly. "No." Leo replied quickly. "I thought it was, just a nice cultural thing." She tilted her head slightly, studying him like a puzzle she couldn't solve. "Then you are either very foolish," she said, "or very brave." Leo sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I guess I'm both." Zara placed the ceremonial blade on the table in 3 suns. She said, "You must pass the trial of standing. It is our way to prove that your choice was made with strength, not weakness. And if I fail?" Leo asked. Zara didn't answer right away. Finally, she said, "Then both of us fall. And our bond will be erased with shame." Leo sat down, stunned. He had just come to represent Earth in a peaceful summit, maybe shake hands, maybe drink some alien tea. Now he was bound by a cultural mistake to one of the most dangerous warriors on the planet. And if he failed a trial he didn't even understand yet, he wouldn't just embarrass himself, he might bring dishonor to Zara's entire clan. He looked at her again, standing proud and tall like a statue carved from metal and fire. "What if I try?" he whispered. Zara blinked, her voice soft for the first time. "Then I will stand beside you, for the first time since landing on Kirith." Leo felt the full weight of the galaxy pressing on his shoulders. He didn't know the rules. He didn't know the dance. But now, he had 3 days to become a warrior or die trying, and Zara, the alien warrior who never smiled, had already tied her fate to his, all because of one dance, bound by honor. Not choice. The first thing Leo noticed the next morning wasn't the alien sky, the strange food, or the thick silence outside. Was the guards. 6 of them, armored and sharp-eyed, standing outside his room like he was a prisoner. He rubbed his face, still trying to believe yesterday was real. Had he really danced into a marriage with a warrior from another world? Was this what diplomacy looked like on Kirith? He pulled on the rough tunic someone had left folded at the edge of the bed and stepped out. The guards followed him down the glowing halls without a word. They didn't touch him. But he could feel the weight of their stares like knives pressing into his back. At the end of the corridor stood Zara, her arms crossed, dressed in full armor as if ready for war. She looked at him once and turned away. "Follow," she said. He didn't argue. The training grounds were open and massive, surrounded by statues of old champions and filled with warriors sparring under twin suns. Zara introduced him to a creature named Yulthar, half muscle, half scar, who grinned wide. When he saw Leo, "This, the human?" Yulthar asked, his voice like gravel sliding across metal, "Look soft." Leo smiled politely. "Hi, I'm Leo, and yeah, I'm soft." The creature burst out laughing and tossed him a heavy wooden rod. "You won't be soft after I'm done with you." That morning, Leo learned that pain had many forms on Kirith. He was slammed to the ground, thrown in the mud, dragged through drills he couldn't understand, and mocked every time he fell. But he kept getting back up. Zara watched from the edge, her face unreadable, arms folded like stone wings. She never said a word, not praise, not insult, just silence, after hours of torture. Yulthar dropped beside him and said, "You lasted longer than I thought. Human?" Leo spat dirt. "That's something, right?" Later in the bath chambers, Leo sat in the steaming pool and stared at his reflection. His arms were covered in bruises, his shoulder ached, and he could barely lift his hand. But his eyes held something new: determination. He wasn't strong like them, but he was smart, fast, and stubborn. He would survive this. He had to. That night, Zara came to his chamber again. "You returned," she said, as if it surprised her. "I'm not leaving," Leo replied, sitting on the edge of his bed. "You still think this is a mistake?" he asked. Zara didn't answer right away. "My clan was disgraced when my first bondmate fell without honor," she said slowly. "The council gave me one last chance to restore our name, and I was the lucky prize," Leo said with a bitter smile. "You were unexpected," she replied, "but not weak." He looked at her closely for the first time, not as a warrior or a threat, but as someone alone in her own way. She had lost everything and was trying to rebuild with a stranger she didn't choose. "I didn't come here to marry anyone," Leo said, "but I won't be the reason you lose everything again." Zara's eyes narrowed, but this time with something softer than doubt, maybe respect, maybe hope. The next morning, the guards didn't stare as much. Yulthar greeted him with a nod instead of a laugh. The other warriors didn't cheer for him, but they no longer mocked him either. Leo started studying how Kirithi moved. Not just their strength, but their patterns, their habits. He began using smaller movements to dodge, counters instead of strikes, canned balance instead of brute force. He wasn't just learning to fight. He was learning to survive their world on his own terms. Every day, Zara watched, and every night, she came to his chamber. Not to scold or test, but to speak. Their words were few, but slowly. Something shifted between them. Not love, not yet, but understanding. One evening, as he washed his bruised hands, Leo asked, "Why don't you train with me?" Zara looked surprised, then replied, "Because if I did, you would break." Leo grinned. Maybe, but at least I'd break learning from the best. For the first time, she smiled, just slightly, and the next day, she joined him on the field. The crowd of warriors fell silent as the bond partners sparred before them. Human and Kirathi sweat mixing with dust, steel meeting will. Leo knew then this wasn't just a trial anymore. This was his place now, not just beside Zara, but in the heart of a world that once saw him as weak. And though the trial of standing was still coming, one truth had already taken root inside him. He no longer danced by accident. He would fight by choice. The trial of blades, the arena floor smelled like fire, blood, and old victories buried in the dust. Leo stood in the center, wearing light armor that barely fit and holding a wooden staff that felt too short in his hands. Thousands of Kirathi watched from the stone stands, their eyes glowing in the dark as chants shook the air like thunder. At the far end, a gate creaked open. Out stepped a monster, not a beast, not a mindless creature, but a hulking alien warrior from the rival Skarn Bloodclaw clan, with 4 arms, twin axes, and scars that told stories of brutal winds. Leo's mouth went dry. He turned his head just slightly and saw Zara standing at the edge of the platform above. She wore ceremonial armor and a face carved from stone. But her eyes, they were locked on him like a lifeline. The trial of blades begins, the announcer boomed. Should the human fall, the bond is broken, and both will carry shame. Leo's grip tightened on the staff as the beast charged. He didn't run. He didn't raise the staff either. He rolled to the side, barely missing the sweep of a massive axe, and stumbled to his feet as the crowd gasped. The creature roared and spun around, its attacks faster than expected. Leo dodged one, blocked the second, but the third strike clipped his shoulder, sending him sprawling across the dust. Pain flashed hot through his arm. The crowd grew silent. He didn't rise at first. Then he remembered Zara's words during last night's training. "You are not stronger, but you are clever. Make them believe you're smaller than you are. Then strike where it breaks." Leo took a breath, rolled aside as another axe slammed down beside him and swept his staff at the beast's knee. It wobbled. He struck again. Not hard, but fast. 3 hits to the joint, then jumped back. Now it limped, just a little. He darted around it like a wasp, jabbing, poking, twisting under its reach. The creature grew angry, wild, sloppy, and when it charged one last time, Leo stepped aside, spun, and struck the back of its leg just hard. Enough to send it toppling forward. The beast landed face first in the dirt. Leo stood over it, panting, his staff pointed at its throat. Silence. Then, one by one, the Kirathi began to roar. Their voices rose like a storm, calling out his name. Mockingly, but with pride, Zara descended the stairs and entered the arena without a word. She stopped before him, looked into his eyes, then dropped her blade to the sand and knelt. Leo froze. He had no idea what to do. She extended her hands, palms up, the same gesture she made during the dance. This time, he understood. He mirrored her. The arena went quiet again as the counselor's voice rang through the sky. The trial is past. The bond is complete. The warrior has accepted the human as her equal. The ceremonial blade was brought once again, but this time it was handed to Leo. He looked at Zara, unsure. She nodded once. Slowly, he raised the blade toward the sky, and the arena exploded with chants of Earth, Flame, and Stormfang's mate. Back in the chambers, Leo dropped to the floor and laughed into the rug, his body aching from head to toe. Zara stood behind him, watching, quiet. "You fought well," she said after a long silence. "I got lucky," he replied, still breathing. "Hard. There is no luck in that arena," she said firmly. "Only strength and will." He sat up and looked at her. "Does this mean we're actually married now?" he asked. Zara paused, then answered, "It means we are bond partners. By law, by honor, and now by trial." He let the words settle in the air. Zara didn't smile, but she didn't look away either. "You are not what I expected," she said. "I get that a lot," he replied. That night, the stars above the palace seemed to shine closer than ever before. Leo couldn't sleep, not because of the pain, but because something inside him had changed. He had entered this world by mistake, but now by trial and by fire. He belonged to it. The warriors passed. The night before the ceremony, a storm rolled over the mountains of Kirith, lightning flashing like war drums in the sky. Leo stood beneath the open canopy of Zara's quarters, watching the clouds churn as cold rain kissed his skin. Behind him, Zara sat silently, sharpening her blade with slow, deliberate strokes, the sound steady as her breath. "Do you ever sleep?" Leo asked, his voice low. "Sleep is for those with nothing to remember." She replied without looking up. He turned to face her, crossing his arms. "I've been meaning to ask," he said. "Why did you agree to bond with me? Why didn't you just refuse?" Zara stopped sharpening and placed the blade aside. "For a long time, I had no clan," she said, her voice quieter now. "No honor, no future." Leo moved closer, listening. "I once had a bond partner," she said. "His name was Kale, a warrior of great skill." She looked away as wind blew in, lifting the edge of the curtain like a whisper trying to escape. "We fought beside each other for 5 cycles." She continued until the final campaign on the Vark front. Leo sat down on a nearby bench, his hands resting on his knees. "He died protecting me," she said, her voice hollow. "The enemy called it cowardice, said I let my male shield me like a child." She clenched her fists, her knuckles turning. "Pale, my clan believed them," she said. "I was cast out." Marked as one who brought shame, Leo stayed quiet, his eyes on the ground. "The council gave me one chance to restore honor," she said. "I had to bond again, prove I could. Lead and stand with pride." "So," Leo said, lifting his eyes to hers, "that's what I was your second chance." Zara looked at him, unblinking. "Yes," she said, "but you became more outside." The thunder rumbled like distant footsteps, and rain began falling heavier against the roof. "You didn't know the dance," she said, "but you never backed down." Leo gave a dry chuckle. "I thought it was a party." Zara allowed the corner of her mouth to twitch a sign of amusement, maybe even affection. "But now," she said, "you carry my fate as much as I carry yours." That night, the palace guards spotted movement outside the walls. Dark figures moved through the rain. Silent and fast, Leo was still awake when the first explosion rocked the training yard. The door burst open as Zara grabbed her sword and pushed him behind her without hesitation. "Stay low," she ordered, eyes scanning for enemies. Figures in dark armor rushed the corridor, blades raised, moving like shadows with purpose. Zara met them head-on, slicing through 2 attackers before Leo even blinked. He grabbed a kitchen blade from the nearby table and stood beside her, heart pounding like a war drum in his chest. One of the invaders lunged at him. He ducked, sidestepped, and drove the blade into the attacker's thigh, twisting it until the alien screamed. Zara turned to see him bloodied but standing his ground. "You fight like a beast," she said with surprise. "I fight like a cornered idiot," he gasped. "Big difference." Together, they pushed through the attackers defending the chamber, until palace warriors arrived and drove the intruders out. After the attack, medics arrived, but Leo waved them off. He had a cut on his arm, bruises on his ribs, and blood on his face, but he was alive. Zara approached him as he sat on the floor. Breathing heavily, you could have hidden, she said. Kneeling beside him, I could have, he answered. But then, who would have had your back? She didn't speak right away. Then she reached out and wiped a smear of blood from his cheek with her bare thumb. You are not Kale, she whispered. But you are no less. Leo looked at her, and for once, he didn't feel like a visitor. On a strange planet, he felt like someone who had earned a place, even if it was covered in bruises. Zara helped him to his feet and guided him to a bench where she began cleaning his wound herself. No medics, no servants, just her hands, strong and careful, wrapping his arm with tight, practiced motion. You didn't have to do this, she said quietly. I know, Leo said, but I wanted to. The rain slowed outside, and inside that quiet chamber, among torn curtains and broken tiles, something unspoken passed between them. Not honor, not duty, but something deeper. Alien hearts and human instinct. Zara's blade sliced through the wooden post, splitting it in half with one clean strike, but her eyes were not on the target. They were on Leo, who now stood across the field surrounded by warriors, sparring with speed and precision no one expected from a human. The news of his survival during the assassination attempt had spread across Kirith like wildfire. No one laughed at him anymore. No one called him soft-skin or earth-weak. Now, they watched in silence. They watched because the human had fought beside their finest warrior and lived. He earned something rare in Kirithi culture, respect through blood and defiance. Leo moved fast, using lighter armor and quick steps, dodging strikes and countering with clever angles. He didn't overpower his opponent, he out-hawed them. Zara crossed her arms and narrowed her eyes. Every move he made told her something. He was no longer trying to survive. He was adapting, learning, choosing to be part of her world. The warrior beside her spoke. He's more than we thought. Zara didn't answer, but her silence said enough. Later that night, Leo walked into the empty training hall and found Zara standing alone under the torchlight. I saw you watching, he said, wiping sweat from his brow. You've improved, she replied. I had a good teacher, he said with a smile. Zara stepped forward, her armor off, her tunic simple, her blade sheathed. She looked different, not less dangerous, but more real. Tomorrow, she said, a warrior from my past will challenge you. Leo raised an eyebrow. Another trial? He asked. No, she replied. This one is personal. His name was Corin Vel, a former suitor and elite blade master of her clan. He believed Zara had betrayed tradition by bonding with an outsider. He challenged Leo's right to stand beside her. I can walk away, Leo said. You can annul this thing. Get your full rank back. Zara looked at him, her voice steady. I don't want a rank built on cowardice, she said. I want truth. Leo hesitated, then nodded. I won't run, he said. The next day, the arena wasn't filled with cheering crowds. It was silent. Tense, filled only with warriors of high blood and sharp eyes. Corin Vel stood like a shadow carved from iron, tall, brutal, confident. He carried twin swords with ceremonial wraps, and his smile was sharp as his blades. You bring shame to her. Name, Earthman, Corin said coldly. I will remove it with steel. Leo didn't reply. He simply stepped forward with no blade in hand. Corin charged. But Leo wasn't planning to fight like a Kirithi. He moved low, let Corin swing wide, and slipped behind him, using a stun baton built from Earth's tech and modified by his own hands. A quick jab to the back of the leg dropped the warrior to one knee. Another strike disabled his sword arm by the time Corin tried to rise again. Leo had already circled him, standing behind with the baton aimed at his throat. I didn't come here to steal your place, Leo said, loud enough for all to hear. But I won't let anyone decide for her. He stepped back and tossed the baton aside. If you want her, win her the Kyrithi way. By strength and words, not by cutting down someone who chose her without fear. Zara stepped forward, standing beside Leo before Corin could answer. This is my bond partner, she said, chosen not by accident, but by fire. Corin looked between them, said nothing, and walked away without honor. Later that evening, Leo and Zara sat together beneath the twin moons. The ceremony fire still burned nearby, casting orange light across their faces. Why didn't you strike him down? She asked. Because you're not something to win. Leo replied, you're someone to walk beside. Zara turned her face to him slowly, her voice quieter than usual. No one has said that to me before. Leo laughed softly. Well, you married a weird human. She didn't smile, but she leaned against his shoulder. For the first time since the dance that changed his fate, Leo didn't feel lost. He felt. Chosen Zara reached over and took his hand in hers. It wasn't part of a ritual. It wasn't for the audience. It was hers and his. For that one quiet moment, two hearts from two worlds beat in rhythm, not for war or duty, but for something more honest. Asterisk, the honor reclaimed. Asterisk, the High Council chamber was colder than the battlefield, not in temperature, but in presence. Here, power did not shout. It whispered behind masks and polished stone. Leo stood in the center of the circular hall, a glowing crest of Kirith above him, his shoulders squared, though his heart pounded like war drums. Around him sat 12 counselors, cloaked in dark robes and high status. Zara stood beside him in full ceremonial armor, expression unreadable. Her hand resting on the hilt of her blade, though no combat would be fought here today, stepped forward, human of earth. The central voice called. Leo obeyed. This hearing will decide your final place. The counselor continued. The bond between you and Commander Zara Velrin has changed more than custom. It has shaken clans, stirred alliances, and drawn eyes across the stars. Leo said nothing. He had learned that in Kirith, silence was often stronger than words. The elder counselor leaned forward, voice sharper now. You have passed trial by combat, by fire, and by loyalty, he said. But one question remains. Will you release her so she may return to her rightful command? Zara turned her head sharply, but said nothing. Leo glanced at her before answering, his voice firm. No murmurs rippled through the chamber like distant thunder. She is not mine to release, Leo added. She chooses her own path, Zara stepped forward without waiting for permission. I was given a chance to reclaim my name. She said, I found something greater, a bond not forged by order, but by choice, then you would abandon your rank. Another counselor asked, raising one gray brow. I would abandon nothing, she replied. But I will not trade love for status. The chamber fell into silence once more. Then the ruling voice echoed out. So be it, the bond is recognized. Across all clans, the warrior and the human will serve as ambassadors, united in symbol and strength outside the hall under the sharp light of day. Zara and Leo walked alone down the long stone path lined with banners of every major house. I thought they tried to separate us, Leo said finally. They did, Zara replied. You refused. He looked at her as they walked. You would have let me go? I would have watched you walk away, she said, but I would not have followed. Leo paused. You mean, you wouldn't chase me? Zara stopped and turned to him. No, she said, I would wait until you turned around. For the first time, Leo didn't laugh. He reached out and touched her face gently. Brushing back the strands of her hair caught in the wind, she didn't pull away. I didn't know love could feel like a war, he said. It is not a war, she replied. It is standing on the battlefield and choosing the same side every time. They stood together, hands wrapped tight, as members of both. Human and Kirathi delegations watched from a distance, to warriors, to worlds. Bound not by mistake, but by fire, steel, and choice, the next morning they were summoned to the great amphitheater of voices, where young warriors trained and ancient names were remembered in song. The council requested a public reaffirmation of the bond this time, not as mistake, but as legend. Zara looked at Leo and asked a single question. "Do you still not know what the dance truly means?" He laughed. "I know one thing," he said. "I'm not dancing alone anymore." She extended her hand. He took it, and as the drums began again, as thousands of eyes watched, they danced not as strangers or symbols, but as something more permanent, more real. Their story no longer belonged to them alone. The dance of forever, the stars of Kirith shimmered like living fire, forming twin halos over the grand platform where the final ceremony would be held. The entire valley below pulsed with energy, as if the very planet waited for what was about to happen. Leo adjusted the collar of his ceremonial tunic. Not the stiff one from Earth, but a flowing garment designed by Zara's people, gift from her clan. Sewn in silence, delivered with honor, he stood beneath the statue of the first Flame Warrior, watching the arena fill with thousands from every species, house, and station, but none of them mattered. Only one person would meet him at the center of the platform. Zara appeared without warning, walking toward him through the firelit arches, her armor replaced by a long robe threaded in crimson and black, a blade across her back, and the firelight dancing in her eyes. Leo forgot how to breathe for a moment. She stopped before him and extended her hand with slow, deliberate grace. "Are you ready, Earth Flame?" she asked. He took her hand without hesitation. "Only if you are, Storm Fang." The drums began not loud this time, but slow and deep, like the heartbeat of something ancient. They moved in rhythm, not copying each other, but responding. One leading, one answering, step by step, heartbeat by heartbeat. This was no longer the dance of bonding. This was the dance of forever. The people watching were silent, not with boredom, but with reverence. They were not just seeing a human and an alien warrior move together. They were witnessing two worlds choosing to never stand apart again. Zara turned as the final beat dropped into silence and drew the blade from her back, holding it flat between them. Leo placed both hands on the steel, meeting her eyes. "I am no warrior," he said, "but I will always fight for you." Zara's voice was steady. "And I am no healer," she said, "but I will always protect your heart." The blade was sheathed, the drums stopped. The crowd stood without being told from the highest platform. The ruling counselor raised his voice from flame and storm. "A new name rises, a new path begins. Let all remember the bond formed, not by tradition, but by trial and truth." After the ceremony, Leo stood with Zara beneath the high cliffs, where stars stretched across the sky like rivers of silver. She leaned against him. No armor, no formality, just her breath steady beside his. "You really didn't know what the first dance meant, did you?" she asked suddenly. Leo laughed under his breath. "I thought I was just being polite." Zara smirked. "You were agreeing to a blood union, a lifelong bond, and possibly a duel to the death." He looked at her with a crooked grin. "Guess I've got good rhythm." She didn't laugh. She kissed him, not with ceremony, not with heat, but with truth, a warrior's kiss. Heavy with memory and promise. Later, as the wind blew across the valley, Leo spoke softly. "Do you think we'll ever stop proving ourselves?" Zara answered without hesitation. "We don't stop proving," she said. "We choose to keep showing up." He smiled at that, because even in a world filled with war, law, and ritual, Zara had chosen him, not because of the dance, not because of a trial, but because when the fire burned brightest, they stood together, and they would again, tomorrow, and every day after. The end.